Good morning. It's Vaughan at westcoatbellpottery.ca in Nova Scotia, Canada. I can't believe I'm sitting here again, but summer is over. We're officially in fall. I'm back at my window in front of the water instead of facing the courtyard where customers come in. So it's my favorite wheel to throw on. But there you go. That's why I like sitting at this window. This video is going to be about making your pots better. I mean, assuming you can make decent pots. Let's make them better, and that's why I thought I've got all this assortment of tools to make chattering, which seems to be really made my bowls a lot better, and the customers love the texture and everything. And I've got a whole array of these tools, must be about 20 of these now, and then Bill sent from that company artisanpotterytools.com. He sent these 3-foot making tools, and they instantly made my feet better of my pots, and it's a very easy way to use these. I'm going to show you that in the rest of the video. I just trimmed one just to show you, if we can get a little bit of a profile there. That's what it made the foot like using this tool. It fits right in there like that, and you get that double ring, and it's just beautiful the way it makes the pot look. So anyway, let's get to the video, and you can see how I make my pots better with chattering and foot making tools. It's time to kind of just do things now for me. So I'm going to throw some really beautiful shaped bowls, hopefully, and I thought I should talk about what makes a bowl beautiful and all that, and so we're going to be doing that as well, because everybody throws on, when they first get on the wheel, everything flares out and you make a bowl. It's a little cereal bowl. It seems like that's naturally what the clay wants to do, but it's nice to control the clay, so we're going to do some different shaped bowls and try and talk about what makes them a nice bowl. So a bowl should be stable, so it sits on a table and doesn't get knocked over. It looks very elegant the narrower the foot you make, but you can't stab a carrot in those bowls because it just falls over. So you have to have some stability with your bowl, and you have to have something that makes it feel a little elegant, unless you're going for purely function, which is when you just make a small plate, lift the rim up, and you've got a shallow flat bowl. It's like a pet bowl basically that can't get knocked over. The dog just pushes it all the way around the kitchen, but it doesn't fall over. But basically that's just pure function with no attempt at being elegant. So there's something in between that would satisfy everything perfectly, I guess. So we'll talk about that too. But the first thing I want to do is what I consider my favorite shaped bowl. I just threw one to show you, is that. So it's actually got some elegance to it, and it's got a wide enough foot so that it won't get knocked over very easily, especially when some weight in there with some food. It is a very stable bowl, and it's got some nice elegance because it flares out like a trumpet at the top. I always like that rather than curving back in. Although if you're scooping some liquid out of this bowl, if it was to turn back inwards, the liquid would fall into the scoop and you wouldn't make a mess. Whereas this bowl, if you're sliding your spoon up the side to make the food sit into your bowl, into your spoon, eventually it's just going to flop right over the sides. So even this bowl has a little issue, and I think common sense would tell people that that's what would happen. So, but anyway, that's my favorite shaped bowl. So this is my setup for throwing pieces. I like this system. I had a big bat. I cut a hole in the center of it, right where the pins are, so I can see where the pins go. And then I have these bats, which are about ½ an inch thick. And I found these at a recycle store, so I was lucky. I paid $1 a piece for them. I had to thicken them with a very thin 1/4 inch piece of plywood, which goes in the center of this bat. So these actually go in. And I always get the water out before I put it in there because it splashes up. So I put them in, press down, and it's tight. It's cut just to the size to make these bats fit tightly. And you know, it actually is easy because then I use the screwdriver when it's finished, and I just lift them out. So it's a very nice system. You could make something simple just by hand by cutting small little 8-inch, 9-inch bats to go inside here, and it would work just fine. You just have to cut a hole big enough so they slot in and are tight. I have cut up pieces of clay that are about 1.5 pounds. So I've got a bit of clay left on this bat that isn't thoroughly dry, so I can just go over the top of it and make it a bit damp, and then I can put this down right on the center. It's obviously square, so I just bang it into a little round, and then I'm going to center it. So this wheel has the wall right on the side here, so I can actually stick my elbow in, but these are small balls of clay, so I don't really need to do that. So if you're a beginner, pull your chair right up to the wheel so you can position your head as it leans in right over the center of the piece that's spinning underneath you. Then we're going to center it. First thing you do is wet your hand, put a little water on the piece, swash it down tight. Now it's stuck to the wheel head. Wet both hands and press equally with both to round it off. Not trying to center it yet. So when you're centering, you press down with the top hand, that flattens the clay. Press in with the side hands, that makes the clay get narrower. And if you do it at the same equal speed and weight with both hands, the clay should naturally go into center. And then you let go slowly. That's not centered yet. So if you're having trouble doing that, cone it by putting one of your hands right down to make it start to form a cone, and put both hands around. And little fingers on the wheel head, then you just cone it by pulling your hands up to the top as you squeeze, makes a cone. Pushing it down, hand on the top, and then slowly let go so it doesn't go off center, and then you dribble water on it and you push back down, and at some point you'll feel like there is absolutely no wobble whatsoever, and you let go slowly. If you let go fast, it'll go off center again. See? So you let go slowly. Stays in center. Then you put your finger in the center, feel for the actual point where there's no wobble, and your finger slides in to make a dimple. You let go slowly. Then go down, pull to the side after you leave about a centimeter from the bottom, and let go slowly. Take your finger and move it from the outer edge to the center, and that's recompressing that base so that you even out the stresses in the clay caused by opening it up. Alright, wetting it all the way over like that. Fingers go in the water, dribble it right across inside and outside. Then I position the fingers at 45 degrees. At 45 degrees, the inside fingers are higher up than the outside fingers, and you push the fingers together and then start rising immediately so that it's still wet where the rotation catches your fingers again, because you're always at the point just above where you had the pressure, the previous rotation. That's important that you don't let the clay dry out, so you have to be able to get used to counting your revolutions in your head and by instinct. You put pressure on and you start coming up straight away, so that you're always at the level above where the previous rotation was with your fingers, and let go slowly. And I always kind of try and compress the rim as top of a pull. Dribble water down so it's wet all the way down. Same again, I'm going to push in hard with the outside fingers and start coming up immediately. So I put a lot of pressure on them to get it narrower at the bottom, and don't go right to the top. Just let it compress the rim a little bit. Then taking your rib, that's about enough pulls. Give yourself an edge at the bottom that cleaned up. At this point I try and get the water that's in the inside and use the sponge and pull that water from the bottom all the way up to the top. That way it's sort of smooth and slippery all the way up. And then you take your rib, your metal one, and you place it so it's but these bats are very smooth, so I can let it sit on the bat against the way it's spinning, and it won't catch. So if you've got a wooden bat that's got grain in it, you won't be able to do that, so lift it up a bit higher. But I actually let it touch the bat, and then I start the smoothing with my fingers opposite the rib, right at the bottom, and I actually take the rib to the top and let go slowly. It's got all the water off. Now I'm going to actually shape it. It's still slippery, evenly slippery all the way around on the inside. So I'm simply bringing my fingers up along the edge of the rib. And now I'm bringing the rib up. And I'm going to flare out by moving the rib, so I've got the curve of the rib to do that little trumpet shape. Because it's got a bit of a wobble, I'm just going to go back in there and get rid of that wobble. You can use the other side of the rib too. If you feel like you've got a bit of a wobble, make sure your fingers are smooth. You don't want any slip that's going to go on the inside, because it's slimy on the inside, but it's not super wet. So I'm just going to try and get rid of that wobble as much as I can. And let go slowly. And that's a nice shaped bowl. The mysteries of clay. And then you've got that little trumpet bit at the top. So that's the bowl shape that I like to do a lot. And I just, feel like it's functional, and it also has a nice bit of elegant shape. And when you trim it, you can put a deep foot on it too. So let's make a wider bowl and see if we can make it elegant. Same process for centering. Now we're going to put that little spiral in, which is optional, obviously. And then give your foot a bit of definition there. And before you ever take a piece off the bat, clean up the bat. All that extra water that's on there just slows your piece drying, so just take it off. And then make sure, because this is BMX5 that I'm throwing, it's a very smooth clay, I don't need to use a leather on it. And then you lift it up. And we've got a wider foot piece now that still has an elegant form. So I think that would still classify as a nice elegant shaped bowl, but much more stable. Same again, now we're going to make an even wider bowl. Pull out, see what you've got. Much wider foot again, but still has a feeling of elegance. Okay, that's what we've been starting off with, just this little hockey puck basically for each one, and we sort of centered it like that to get the shape that we wanted to start. And it kind of determines the side of the foot at the bottom. but you could stretch it out as I did in the last one. Well, obviously we can go even wider than that and really get a wide foot. Then we're going to dry it out so that it's equally smooth all the way up, and dry it out on the outside too. Okay, I just had the guy come in to pick up his 3 sinks, so I had to stop what I was doing for a minute. So there we go. So the last thing we have to do this is give it that nice shape. So I'm angling, pressing my inner finger to the metal rib and just giving it a nice belly. And the belly should finish and leave me enough to pull out to give you that little trumpet look. And then let go slowly. So it'll hang out a little bit. Let's see if we got anything. Yeah, I think it just has to be, there you go. You have to refine it a little bit to make sure that you've got a nice curve. And then you can do that spiral again. Use my middle finger this time. It's a wider shape, it could take a slightly wider spiral. And then sponge over the rim. And then take a look to see what you got and make sure it's nice. Take the water off the bat, and then you can lift it off. And what do we have this time? The widest of all the feet, and still have a nice elegant shape. So now we're going to do one the same as before. We're going to widen it by pressing the heel of the hand down, leaving ourselves a nice 1 centimeter thick base, and we're going to go out as far as we can and still feel like we can get a bit of a wall out of this. And this is where I think you get into the danger ground, where you might end up with a dog bowl. Although I know that those shaped bowls the pets use can still be made a little elegant. So I'm taking the rubber rib and just pressing it out. So I've left enough to get a bit of a foot. Dribble the water in, but this is a very wide. Dribble water over the edge too, because it's a bit dry on the edge. But now I can lift up whatever wall I can get to still feel like it's got a little bit of elegance. Dribble water on the rim, down in and out. In and then pull up. Take your wooden rib, take a bit off at the base, easier to get the wire underneath. And then use the metal rib and just try to give yourself a little belly. And then a little flare. And then that's really about as far as I can go with that feeling of having something that's got some elegance to it and being very functional as a serving bowl. You could serve spaghetti in this. It's so flat, you could just be, it's too big as a personal serving bowl, I think, although it might make a nice dinner plate for dinners like spaghetti. But take the water off your piece, off the bat itself. There's nothing wrong in trying to keep your wheel and your piece of pottery clean. Then do the little spiral so they all match in that sense. I'm just going to try and bend that out just a bit more. Wait till the sponge is enough to bend it out. Be interesting to see how much they actually lift up as well. So what do we have? There. Still got a bit of a belly, a little bit of elegance to it. Okay, so now we're going to do the other type of bowl, but I'll just make one of these. I'm going to leave it a centimeter at the bottom. And you pull up, the food falls into the spoon, so you don't scoop it over the edge of the bowl. So functionally, that has a really nice kind of advantage. There we go. Let's show you the profile. There you go. So it's a nice shaped bowl, and functionally will work better for liquids. Now we're going to go to the not the ridiculous, but the extreme. I'm going to leave my little foot 1 centimeter at the bottom. Just starting to get a bit of a wobble there now. Take your clay off. And that's to the extreme. And that's pretty extreme, eh? But beautiful, beautiful, elegant bowl. Okay, this is what I just threw. So we got 6, 13, and then 3, 6, 8. So I've got about 21 bowls. All pretty much fulfill my goal of making a functional bowl that looks a little elegant. So, so next I'll show you how I trim them. Okay, this is the morning after with these mugs, bowls. I basically just have to cut through, and I'm just going to show you this. This tool, I've shown it before in videos, is called a harp. I got it in England, and I'm sure somebody in North America probably makes these. But it makes it so easy. You can one-handedly, using a guitar string, just cut through your piece. And then you just slide it off and turn it upside down. So it's a very useful tool. When you think about how many times you use tools, sometimes you buy a tool, maybe use it once every week, once a month, whatever. I use this every day, many times. Okay, giffing grip. Place it all in, tighten up a little bit. Don't over tighten because the rim's quite dry at this point, so you don't want to actually lose your piece due to you know, over tightening where it cracks the rim, because if you bend it a little bit, it would crack. So I'm using one of Bill Wright's Artisan Pottery Tools trimming tool here. Don't need to take an awful lot off. I'm going to do some chattering. I throw my bowls so that I really don't have to trim a lot of depth. It's just about a cleaning up. Now we left a centimeter just about inside all of these, so I can press down quite hard knowing that I've got some thickness there. I do that because I like to put this hollow area in the foot so I can glaze a little circle inside there of glaze. It looks nice. I can fire on stilts anyway, but anyway, that's all you need to do, make that nice little hollow area. People look at the bottoms of pots. It's like an instinct when you pick a piece of pottery up to look at the bottom. Now, if it's a bit off-centered, see how it's bump, 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 bump? That means it's just a touch off-center there. So you just hold your tool steady, and you can take that little piece off. Just on that, it'll be where it's touching on one side, just by holding the tool very rigid, but you've got to make sure your hand doesn't follow the piece by resting on the pottery and follow it, because then you wouldn't be taking off just that edge on one side, you'd be taking it all the way around. Okay, so the foot is quite deep, and that's what helps make the pot look a bit elegant, because it lifts it up. It's an uplifting mechanism. And now for the chattering, you can use any tools you want. I like to use the straight edge one like this, and there's another one, if I can find it. I'll just use this one then. I don't see the other one here. This one makes like a cuneiform, like mark. Got pretty good at doing it now, so I get it one after each time. So that's just practice. And then we've got this little rounded chattering tool, which I really like. I should show you what it looks like. There you go. That's one pass down, and you get like lots of these marks in a sort of pattern making way. But if you end up doing two passes, you end up more of a texture. And that's strictly, actually, that's still kind of a nice even pattern, but it's more of a pattern, more of a texture than a pattern. And if I did a third way down, you'd get much more of a texture again. And then I like to find the right tool, put a line in to define these areas. Okay, it gives a nice definition. Let's get my brush. And we'll see what we've got. Get you a bit closer up here. There you go. See if hopefully the light's catching that. See how nice that foot is? It's really defined. It really lifts it up. So when you see the bowl on a table, it will give you that uplift. But I just thought, maybe let's try Bill's new foot making tools that he sent me. Let's see what this does. Now we've got a little ridge there. Will this work as a trimming tool? Not very good as a trimming tool. So let's go with this one. Wow, that's quite a interesting triple ring foot there. Now let's go back. Let's take a little bit of that there. Now this is just a Kemper trimming tool. Now it's very much softer, this piece, but the clay isn't sticking to the pot, so it's still perfect for trimming. Okay, so let's feel it. It has a few bumps on the foot there. This is too soft really for the other trimming tool I was just using. Okay, so we've got go with the uniform looking design. Okay, well you're going to get the gist of this now. This is how I'm going to spend the next 2 hours. Doing some chattering and getting nice feet on my pieces so that they look elegant. Okay, this is the one where I went a bit crazy to make such an elegant foot that is now non-functional bowl, so for food anyway. So I'm just going to trim out. Okay, this is another one of those flat edge tools. So nice lines. At an angle and see what it does. Yep, it's a very nice mark. This one's hard to control, but it gives you a really nice textural mark, and I remembered that from it. So that's why I wanted to try it again. So I was controlling it pretty well, but it's definitely a tough one to control. But that one gives you a nice angled mark there. It's a nice looking bowl, but it's going to stab carrots in that and knock it over. So no stabbing carrots in this bowl. I might do some fluting on this up there too. That would actually be quite nice. Let's have a go at it. If I can do it with the trimming tool here or not. What do we think? Is it too much? It's going to certainly catch the glaze nicely. I can see a really nice cellar in this. Nice. Let's see. Yeah, I think I can just about use this tool. This has a wide foot, so how do you make a wide-footed piece like this look elegant? It's very light. It's not an ugly bowl. Nice marks for the glaze, and on the inside you just start to see some rippling from the softness of the clay with the chattering tool. But that's not a bad bowl. So you know, I'll show photographs after this now and of all the different bowls trimmed, and you can decide which ones you like, which ones are elegant, which ones just fall flat, and try some yourself. Okay, I'm back to trimming on one of those really wide-footed ones that I did. Too. So I was just showing you, I use these sharpening tools. Bill sent me these from, I can't remember the name of the place now, but they're national. It's a hardware company that's national. And you can get these hand sharpening tools and just do that. This is the coarse one, and that will sharpen it up a little bit. Yeah, much better. Now put the foot in again. Let's go with this one. Is this the one I sharpened? It looks like it. Ooh, hold it in there. And then that one made, that's a little thin there. It might get chipped quite easily. So I just knocked off that sharpness at that point there. So we got that nice foot. Let's just do a little chattering there. So one pass, you usually get a pattern. And the slower you go, the wider the gaps between the marks, of course. But you get like a pattern effect. I suppose I could leave that because I go for textures most of the time. I really thinned this bowl off a lot. I can feel it giving a little bit because I was trying to stretch this out to get a wide bowl. So I'm not going to push my luck. Let's go with the third line there and see what that does. That's nice. Actually, I got a bit below there, so let's take a little bit of that off. When I've got to do some kind of detail trimming, I always revert to this tool here. Well, it wasn't too bad. I can see the chattering on the inside of the bowl, so I knew it was thin. And there you've got that nice foot on the bottom of the bowl. So it's a nice profile. I like that bowl. It's got a nice kind of a compromise between narrow foot elegance and functional big flat wide bowl. So it's a nice one. But it's very light. This tool I rarely use, and I just remembered what it did, and so I used it. But look at that. This is just amazing. These chattering tools has so much potential. This is one of those really wide ones again, which I kind of think more of as like a large serving bowl if you wanted to serve pasta or a very liquid dinner. So instead of a plate, you can have one of these wide bowls. It's a bit soft the clay, so I'm using this handle tool for trimming. Let's see what this one does. This is going more of a straight angle. Nice texture though, look at that. A bit close to the rubber grips on this different grip there. But that is one heck of a texture there. Look how it dug in the foot though, so I've got to repair the foot. That was the other tool. Yep, got rid of it. Take a little bit more. I was pressing hard on there and it wasn't giving very much, so I can take a little bit more out of the center. There we go. You can spend quite a bit of time on a piece sometimes if you're really trying to. And that was so textured. I'm running my fingers over it just to smooth it a bit. Let's see what it looks like. Looks quite light. There's the texture. It's a really nice textured outside of that bowl. This is my Montauk daisy hedge, just about peak now. And this is a 2-year-old hedge, and it is amazing. And that one down there is 3 years old. And I planted them very close together so they support each other, because they tend to flop over like peonies if they're on their own. But during a very foggy morning, this is spectacular looking. As you can see, the pigeons are just waiting to be fed. This is the other hedge that we planted 2 or 3 years ago. and it's actually got a little damage from the hurricane. It blew apart in that location, so I'm gonna have to trim that back. And then just up on the right there is the new one, because I ran out, and so I planted one right at the top there, and then I missed a whole gap. But this year I just put about another 6 in there. So we'll continue this hedge up the side of this little patch of lawn. It's going to look lovely in about a 2-year time.